Good morning. Welcome to the program agenda. Maraming salamat po for joining us today. It is January 5, 2023. It's a Thursday, and we thank you for being subscribers of Cignal TV, viewers of One News on channels 8 and 250, as well as those who view us via Facebook and on YouTube, whether you are in the Philippines, from Batanes to Jolo, all the way to Canada, America, and Europe. Medyo meron po kasi tayo mga nagtiyatyaga and devoted to watching the program. Thank you. And of course, thank you to PLDT Home Fiber Optic Internet for the continued service wherever we are in the country. Sana one day magkaroon na tayo ng mobile satellite link na pwede na akong magprograma kahit sa bundok. Okay, let's move on with today's show. And please stick around. Please join us. Watch the program today when we do our panel interview, because today we would like to talk about a topic that people have not been paying attention to. It is some of the disturbing behavior. Okay, I wrote on my column in the Philippine Star, the column entitled Disturbing Behavior, where I pointed out that at the height of that Kaap na iya shutdown, electronic shutdown, people made comments, put out information that were very incorrect, misinformed people, and could have caused panic in many places. And it was very disturbing behavior, because instead of being calm, being responsible, may mga nagpatawa pa. At marami pong bagay na hindi na nakakatawa. Okay, so we will discuss that with communications experts and sociologists after we do the initial part of our program, which begins with our daily starter. For those of you who are struggling, who are having difficulty, tinamaan na kayo ng indulto, namatayan kayo 2023, or you believe that you are paying for past mistakes, I believe today's daily starter would be very reassuring, and it comes from the book of Job in the Bible, chapter 8, verses 5 to 7. But if you will seek God earnestly and plead with the Almighty, if you are pure and upright, even now, He will rouse Himself on your behalf and restore you to your prosperous state. Your beginnings will seem humble. So prosperous will your future be. Yan po. May pangako po ng magandang pagbabago if you truly seek God and humble yourself before Him. And I know this to be true, Lord, because with the Lord, I have seen how He has mightily changed circumstances that seem dark and hopeless. Okay, so now let's go to the front page of the Philippine Star, and it's very interesting and hopeful as well. With a front page headline, China ready to resume oil gas talks with the Philippines. China is ready to resume oil and gas talks and manage maritime issues cordially with the Philippines, Chinese President Xi Jinping said yesterday. According to the Chinese state television, Xi gave this assurance to President Marcos, who is on a 3-day state visit to Beijing. Sana naman po, when President Xi Jinping said cordially, it is in the true definition, okay? Because that would really be a big break for us And as you can see in that photo, there you have Xi Jinping and President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos trooping the line outside the Great Hall of the People in Beijing yesterday. Okay. At the top of the front page, the header, heads to roll for NAIA MES. DOTR Secretary Jaime Jimmy Bautista has issued a statement that after all the investigation has been done and concluded, all those who had anything to do or who are responsible directly or indirectly for what happened over the weekend and this whole week at the CAAP will be terminated. Okay. Meanwhile, that photo is supported by a photo of transport, aviation, defense, intelligence, and national security officials as they inspected Civil Aviation Authority of the Philippines equipment following a top-level meeting at the CAAP compound in Pasay City on Tuesday. I believe that incident is not about to go away because even in today's discussion, we will highlight certain information that came out after that. Okay. Meanwhile, Ateneo makes history, wins World Debate Championship. Okay, the photo you see there are members of the Ateneo Debate Society posing for a photo during a layover in Abu Dhabi on their way to Spain to compete in the World Universities Debating Championship. The image was posted on Facebook December 26, 2022, and after that, they moved on to win the World Debate Championship. Ayan po. Okay. Meanwhile, most OFWs able to leave after airport shutdown. Okay. Ayan po, magandang balita. Only a few overseas Filipino workers affected by last Sunday's airspace shutdown are still unable to leave and awaiting flights, according to the Department of Migrant Workers under Secretary Hans Kakdak. That's good news. Okay, in the meantime, bad news naman po down in Davao. Okay, the photo that you see is a photo from a footage recorded by model businesswoman Yvonette Chua Plaza's closed-circuit television camera showing her being shot by two still unidentified assailants in front of her home in Davao City on December 29, 2022. Sa Davao po nangyari yan, Davao City. Home of the former President Rodrigo Duterte. So medyo what's happening in Davao that never used to happen when he was mayor. Army vows cooperation in the probe of Davao model Slay as one of its officials has denied involvement in the murder of the Davao City-based model businesswoman. Okay, we will look into that story further as it develops. Meanwhile, Interior Secretary Benhar Abalos has opened the new year with a shakedown in the Philippine National Police as he appealed to high-ranking officials to submit their courtesy resignation amid the prevalence of scalawag PNP members involved in the illegal drug trade. Okay? Abalos yesterday said PNP Chief General Rodolfo Azurin Jr. himself recommended the top police officials submit their courtesy resignation. Yan po, no? Hindi lang po illegal drug trade ang concern, pati na po yung mga nagmo-moonlight, nagsa-sideline, nagba-bodyguard, at nagpro-protect sa mga pogo at mga gambling lords. Okay. And speaking of China, 8 Pinoys from China test positive for COVID. Ayan po. That is to be expected from travelers coming from China because talaga pong ngayon pa lang sila pinuputukan ng bulkan. Meanwhile, LPA rains to Mindanao. 2 low-pressure areas located east and west of the Philippine archipelago are expected to bring rains in many parts of the country today. So kayo pong mga nasa bandang Palawan, Surigao, Del Norte, Surigao City, etc., dun sa Lanao, uulanin pa rin po kayo. Please take care of yourselves. And last but not the least, we have a photo. Members of the Manila Police District, led by Director Brigadier General Andre Dizon, inspect the route of the Feast of the Black Nazarene 2023's Walk of Faith for January 8. Ayan na po. So, that about covers all the news we have on the front page. And please do get a copy or subscribe to the Philippine Star because I only do a glancing read of the front page, but there is still so much news inside that it would take half an hour to go through all of it. Okay, now just a heads up before we go to the program. Paalala lang po, reminder to all our friends, viewers, followers of Agenda. If you have a cough, cold, and it's been with you for more than a week, please go see your doctor. Wag po kayong style Filipino, okay lang yan, mawawala din yan. No, I was just told by my physician yesterday, physician friend, Dr. Mike Sarte, that if you've had a cold for 2 weeks, you better and take antibiotics, which I am now taking. So, yung pala, kanya pala ginagawa yun, it's not for the cough. It is for the potential pneumonia, especially for older persons like myself. Okay, let's now go to our main program, our discussion regarding disturbing behavior. Okay? We had an aeronautical shutdown in the entire Philippines. No plane could fly in or fly out. And while people should have been sitting or just waiting to find out what's really going on, there were Filipinos who started posting stuff on Facebook na hindi na po nakakatawa. Okay, meron nga nag-post na we were so much absorbed sa sibuyas, hindi na natin namalayang naibenta na ang naiya. And this is false information. It may have been intended as a joke, but at the time of serious concern or potential national security crisis, that could constitute a criminal act. Okay, so let's now go to our guest to understand, to explain to us what's happening to the Filipino mind. Bakit nagkakaganito na tayo sa ating pag-iisip at pananalita? Let's roll out the video, Gab.
Danilo Arao is an associate professor at the University of the Philippines College of Mass Communication. Arao is the editor of Media Asia, a refereed journal published by the Asian Media Information and Communication Center. Ven Ballano is a sociologist and chairperson of the Master of Arts in Sociology program at the Polytechnic University of the Philippines, Manila. He is the author of 3 Scopus indexed books. In 2021, Ballano received a Gold Medal Award for Excellence in International Research Publication.
Okay, welcome to the program, gentlemen. I hope you picked up on my short intro and got a chance to read my column because I wrote about the disturbing behavior of a number of Filipinos on social media regarding the CAAP shutdown. Now, I'd like to start with you, Professor Arao. What was your experience or what did you pick up during that time when the CAAP shutdown happened?
Of course, just like you, the reaction of many netizens would be somewhat understandable in the sense that they were angry or upset with what happened. But you're right in saying that fake news has no room in discourse, especially in times of breaking news where there is not much information that's available. So you're right. We have to make sure that media literacy would be the key in terms of ensuring that people would know what to post, when to post, and of course to avoid whatever fakery will be out there. Because one aspect, of course, it's understandable that your column can only do so much in terms of covering various topics. But what needs to be emphasized with regard to this information is that it is organized network of trolls and all that. So we have to make sure that it will not be maximized or used by any group to ensure that there would be chaos and panic among people.
Okay, Professor Ven Ballano, good morning. First time on the show.
Morning.
Could you
Yeah, good
kindly
morning,
give
sir.
us your feedback on that situation?
It's really an ideal for rumors in this particular situation because there's an uncertainty of the problem and the authority has not given a clear, convincing information what happened to the CAAP problem. No, so it's really in sociology if situations are uncertain, unpredictable, people start to create improvised news or what you call fake news or rumors. Okay, so the only way to answer this is the authority should promptly respond to the problem by posting, explaining the situation clearly to the people, not waiting for hours or days so people have an idea what's wrong with the cancellation of flights. Okay, although I understand the complexity of the problem that you cannot easily give a clear, convincing information to the public why there was massive cancellation. It turned out there's a serious problem there in the power outage and the software that they're using. So
Yeah,
it's
but
always there.
Prof. Ven, what concerns me about the matter is parang napakadali. It's so easy for people to make fun of a very serious situation. What does this tell us, gentlemen, of our mindset as Filipinos? Parang baka mamaya mukha mo, we are already being invaded and people are still preoccupied making memes on social media and not realizing that our very lives are in danger.
Okay, so that's always understandable if there is a news blackout. People start to create news to fill the gap, no, in moments of uncertainty. So, because there's a deeper problem there involved. Why there's no upgrading of the facilities? Why is there a power outage?
But what about Professor Ven, what about our, if I may use the Tagalog term, ugali, our behavior? What does that say about Filipinos when that is what we resort to?
This is not only for Filipinos. People from different races encountering uncertainty, we always resort to creating news, improvising news. Well, it depends on the cultural background, how they express it. But for us, the Filipinos, you can easily use the technology to create news, no? In order to respond to the problem. Knowledge is control. If people have no knowledge what's going on, then they start to create explanation. That's the rumors. Because
Is that
the community.
is that
Yeah.
a modern day development, Professor Dan? Is that just because of social media? Because I don't remember Filipinos in my time doing this. Okay, chismoso, chismosa. Wala pang marites nung panahon namin. But iba na yung sinasabing meron na raw umiikot na unmanned spacecraft. Iba na yung sinasabi na na take over na tayo. And you know, it may seem funny now, but in those hours and minutes, I was saying to myself, if this is a national security incident or situation, forgive my French, but we're screwed.
Yeah. There are two reasons, Cito. Number one, which was touched upon by Professor Ben a while ago, there are trust issues with the government. So sometimes people will just say whatever they want, especially if it's anti-government in character. That's one. Second, and this is most important, would be the lack of media education and critical analysis in our education curriculum. I think media education has been quite ignored, especially in the K-12 program, where even the media and information literacy program there would only focus on information technology, computer literacy, and other skills-oriented aspects of MIL. So you take away the critical aspect of how to properly consume media. So that's what's lacking right now. And it's very alarming. Professor Ben is right. It's not just inherent in the Filipino culture. We see that everywhere. There was a time, Cito, that it was unthinkable to have group of people thinking that the earth is flat. But the reality is there. Denialism is manifested in various aspects. So there's the denialism about the climate change, about the Holocaust, or even the evils of martial law, if we want to apply it in the Philippine context. So how does that relate to the mishap in the CAAP most recently? This is the lack of critical faculty. Now, we're not saying that Filipinos are stupid or that Filipinos are dumb. No. It's just that the kind of educational system we have is being packaged or perpetrated in a way that would discourage critical analysis. It's a bit of a stretch for me at this point to say that even red tagging certain universities would be the culprit here, because sometimes as a result of red tagging, you are indirectly telling the faculty and the students that critical thinking has no room in this course anymore, especially under this current administration. So that's why in that context, Cito, we have to look at why we are becoming victims of misinformation, and according to surveys, almost half of people struggle to find the truth. It's not because they don't know what the truth is, it's just that our educational system right now does not provide that kind of an environment for critical thinking, because critical thinking is important in terms of battling fake news.
Well, I would say, you know, it's a surrendered mentality. Bahala na si Batman. But the disturbing thing to me was a number of those who were posting ridiculous information or posting jokes and memes were not the poor or underprivileged. They were people who were well off in life. And I was saying, how is this possible that these persons can run businesses, be responsible business leaders and executives, and yet be, I won't use words today, baka makipag-away na naman ako professors, no? But Professor Ben, how do you reconcile that? Parang you have people who run businesses, who are responsible for investments of hundreds of millions, and yet can be so childish and irresponsible, making such commentary or or jokes on social media about a national security concern?
There are functions of rumors, no? Yung mga chismis na yan, marites. One is entertainment. So you have to analyze it. So they can create news, provide news that will entertain people about the Kaap incident. And there is also a function of rumors to anticipate also situations. It can be anticipatory of what will happen after this crisis. Will the government upgrade the facility or do something with the power outage? Or it can be strategic to people to create this fake news for their own interest, maybe for their businesses. Actually, it's a big business creating fake news. There are lots of online companies earning money creating fake news for businesses, for marketing purposes. Because once that social media or post becomes viral, then it can be connected to marketing strategy, to an advertisement. So it depends, no? It's really difficult. We have no comprehensive data on this, on those who have texted or created fake news during the Kaap incident. But I would say people can have different motives in creating this fake news. And for businesses, as you have said, it can be for entertainment, or it can be strategic for their own business purposes.
Okay, because I heard you when you said that all of this might redound or actually result in pushing government to act. Now, I already saw what Professor Clarita Carlos or Secretary Clarita Carlos has said. She already said that the Kaap facilities should be declared as national security concerns or facility. And so may gumalaw, ano? May nangyari, something resulted in that situation. What happens now when a congressman or a senator says, okay, we're going to pass a law, or I think there is already a law in terms of cyber crime, that if you pass any jokes like this, parang bum joke. Sa airport, subukan mo mag-bum joke pag hindi ka nakulong. And yet, here, this is a national security concern and people made bad jokes about it.
Yeah. Maybe to lighten the situation, they create jokes for entertainment purposes.
Yeah, but Professor...
But you don't go behind the issue. That's why we need research, impartial investigation. What really happened? Because there are many vested interests involved here to understand the problem. You can blame the old administration, the former secretary of the OTR, and now they are blaming the current leadership of the OTR, or saying that I've read a column by Cignal that says that they plug this 220 volt to a 380 volt that causes this power outage. So he blamed the current administrator or the leadership of the OTR, and then others would blame the facilities. So
okay, Professor Dan.
Which is which?
Yeah, Professor Dan, what happens if a congressman says, well, dapat we should also go after all of these rumor mongers?
Well, okay, that's a good point. At first, you may think that it's a good idea, but the problem here is how do you define whom? How do you know whom to look after? Do we blame ordinary people for making such misinformed posts, or do we blame the system that creates that kind of an opportunity for irresponsibility to happen? So, of course, rumor mongering is unacceptable, but should it be meted with, the fullest extent of the law? It all boils down to the need for media literacy and for media education. If we want to, really investigate on what happened, we have to look at the angle of government in terms of how it did what we call crisis communication. I think that should be the focus of Congress right now. To what extent?
What about?
Crisis...
Yeah,
Go ahead,
Prof.
sorry.
Dan, what about the responsibility of the companies like Meta or all these social platforms because during the campaign, they were so good at censoring people. They're so, yung mga sabungerong kilala ko are complaining na, pare, nag-post lang ako ng manok ko, binlock na ako. But in this particular situation, I've not heard of any incident where people who posted bad jokes or made light of a serious situation being censured. Should Congress call in the representatives of those media companies?
Yes, definitely. Responsible gatekeeping should be, something normal, not just on Facebook, but also on TikTok, Twitter, and other social media platforms. So I don't want to call it censorship because what Facebook or Meta and other social media platforms should be doing would be something normal in the newsroom. We try our best to filter out the content, and there are certain parameters for truth telling. One would be factual accuracy, the other would be contextual accuracy. And if they fail the test of factual and contextual accuracy, it's either we take down the post or we don't prioritize it in the algorithm. So there are options that should be available to Facebook or Meta. But what we should try to be careful of would be the tendency of certain legislators to impose on content, to regulate the content that would be posted by people, including journalists and media workers.
I think we agree on that,
Yes.
Professor Rao. It's just that sabi nga, and siguro medyo kasi nakikita ko ito, yung mga sabungero, yung mga online sellers, umiiyak. Bakit pag kami nagbebenta nung aming tinaling sinesensure kami, pero yan, hindi nila masensure. Anyway, gentlemen, let's go for a quick break. 2-minute break. When we come back, I'd like to ask Prof. Ven, as a sociologist, what is the ideal behavior under these circumstances or situations? We'll go for a quick break. We'll be back in 2 minutes. Welcome back to the program agenda. I'm your host, Cito Beltran, where we are discussing with Professor Danilo Arao and Professor Ven Ballano the incident that happened over the weekend regarding the CAAP and the behavior of a number of individuals on social media, which could only be labeled as irresponsible entertainment or outright disinformation. Now, Professor Ven Ballano, you are a sociologist by profession, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yeah,
now
I do also research.
now in your field of expertise, what should be the ideal conduct or behavior of Filipinos in incidents such as this?
Well, you have to be aware of the information we receive in the social media, because the problem is, how do you regulate social media and technology? It's difficult to regulate because they have the freedom of expression.
Mhm.
If the post is not malicious, then it should be allowed. Only, I think, malicious posts in the social media that should be censored.
But what about
punished.
personal or individual responsibility? Because I don't know, am I wrong in my observation? Para bang nababaliwala na, or we don't put serious attention to our responsibility, to our obligations as citizens.
Well, Cito, in the age of globalization, people's minds are always in constant flux or cultural recycling. So many information you get from the social media. There's information explosion there. And so if you are not critical, as Professor Arao said, if you're not literate, there's no literacy, media literacy, then you can be picking up any news there. So when you receive fake news or posts that has no source of verification, no, it is unverified, then you don't have to share that. No, I think the ideal there is to look at for the mainstream media, the news, no, to be sure that it is not fake news. Pero kapag social media, Facebook, pinapasa lang, at wala namang source kung saan yan, then we should be aware that we should not pass unverified information kasi sigurado fake news yan. No? So the first ideal behavior there is, if you receive any post from the social media, then you have to verify it first. Go to Google search, type it there. Halimbawa, namatay na daw si ganito. O tingnan mo kung lumabas ba doon. Lumabas pala, fake news yun. O verify, so you check that.
Natatawa ko, Prof. Ven eh. Alam mo kung ba't ako natatawa? Kasi 2 beses, 3 beses na ako namatay.
Oo nga. Lalo na famous. Ibig sabihin Cito, you're already a famous person. Kasi karanasan ang namamatay yung popular na mga celebrities. Ayan. Kaya
Okay.
namatay na daw si Celine Dion.
Professor Dan, okay, where are we supposed to start? Because one would imagine that this has to start at home, with ourselves, but also in school. You being part of the academy in UP, where should we start with this?
Of course, we should start everywhere and anywhere. So we start at home, yes. We start at school. And of course, what's crucial also here would be the media institutions themselves. It's good that fact-checking has become somewhat institutionalized in many news media organizations. That's the way to go. But fact-checking is not enough. Even the owners of social media platforms should be called out and should be pressured to engage in what we call responsible gatekeeping. Because the battle or the fight against fake news is a multi-layered and multi-tier and multi-level response. So that's all there is to it. And of course, the government. Let's not forget the responsibility of the government to create an atmosphere that is conducive, not just for quality education, but also, most importantly, for critical thinking. And I'm sorry to tell you this, Cito, this might take another episode of agenda, but right now we have a government that does not encourage critical thinking among faculty and even among the youth. So that's also a fundamental problem in the battle against fake news, because if we end up discouraging critical thinking even at the level of the government, then what's going to happen to people? When you have legislators suggesting astronaut pills to help us wage hunger, then you also have a problem. So government officials should be the veritable role models in terms of making sure that they have the right information before they open their mouths, so to speak. Kasi sabi nga nila sa wikang Filipino, ang anumang ginagawa ng nakatatanda o ng mas nasa posisyon, yun yung mas ginagaya ng mga tao. Kaya we can also argue that the kind of behavior being done by people is mainly based on on how certain government officials comport themselves in public.
Okay, Professor Ven, another disturbing behavior I observed during this CAAP shutdown, which I noticed among Filipinos in other circumstances, yung bang combative, when put in a situation, hanap away, hanap sisi, where they immediately blame someone, hate on someone, or vent on someone. Now, I'm kind of wondering, is that a class thing? Kasi sabi naman ng mga tao, wala, kahit mahirap, ganyan, kahit mayaman, ganyan. Yung ugali natin, naghahanap tayo ng masisisi or just being verbally abusive. Could you explain why that is?
That is a blaming game. They want to blame other people, not themselves. They're involved in the problem, in the mess. No? So there's a tendency of people to blame others, not blaming themselves, because that's conflict of interest. You people protect and promote their own interest and group interest. And so if it involves them, then they blame other people, other group, other politicians or leaders for the problem. They won't blame themselves. That's why we need a critical investigation, impartial investigation to know what's the cause of this mess, no? Regardless of who are the people involved and interest involved.
That's interesting, Professor Ven, kasi connecting to what Professor Dan was saying, leaders, politicians should set the example. And I realize now that during this CAAP shutdown, if this were in Japan, before any explanations would have been made, an official would have already bowed so low and apologized for the great inconvenience that has happened, regardless of who caused it or what is causing it or what caused it. Meron nang nag-apologize. In the Philippines, apologies are considered a fatal mistake for a career-ending mistake, dahil pag nag-apologize ka, sinabi mong kasalanan mo. Professor Ven.
Well, remember, politicians are commodities, political commodities. They always want to show a good image about themselves. So if they will be blamed, that results to the lowering of their votes. Remember that, no? So they are not only public servants, but they are commodities who want to advertise themselves to create more votes. And so if they are blamed in a mess, then that will be against their own interest. That's why the least that they can do is they will deny and blame other people for this mess. They will not blame themselves. That will affect greatly the next election. So you see, there's really we can't really trust politicians, traditional politicians, in this sense.
Okay, but not just politicians. Government, civil servants. I mean, no one apologized. Kasi we always think of cabinet secretaries, etc. The CAAP director did not immediately apologize, or no one apologized. Professor Dan.
Yeah. Just to clarify, there are people who apologize in government, but only when they're already caught red-handed and they are forced to do so. So that's the problem with the kind of system that we have. And talking about the system, it shows that really the kind of system that we have, the social system, is really broken. We can understand the collective frustration, the anger, the blame game, so to speak, being resorted to by people because sometimes they ask a very simple question, bakit nasasayang yung buwis na binabayad ko? Or anong klaseng gobyerno ba meron tayo? So sometimes the question is as fundamental as that. So it is in that context that we have to understand where people are coming from, while on the other hand, making sure that their rant or that their anger would be tempered so that they don't resort to misinformation or disinformation. But complaining about government is quite normal. Even in Denmark, which is a very, very progressive country, you have Danish people complaining practically every day with regard to the kind of government that they have. So more so here, when we have a government that's far from perfect, and we have people who are really deprived of even the most basic of services, whether in health, transportation, and all that. So what we don't want, actually quite the reverse, Cito, what we don't want is a time when people will stop complaining and when people will start to accept as normal the kind of transportation crisis, health crisis, or food crisis that we're facing. That would be a major problem.
I was about to comment on that, Professor Arao, because in Denmark, they complain daily, but they get solutions daily.
Yes, that's
In
correct.
the Philippines, we complain hourly. The government or the concerned politicians ignore those complaints or just take it in stride, and nothing really is done until years after or when they get kicked out of office. Now, is that a good thing or a bad thing, gentlemen? Kasi parang, sige, mo siyang magngangaw-ngaw dyan. Wala, mapapagod din yan.
Yeah. Well, sorry. Go ahead, Professor Ben. Sorry.
It reflects our culture also, no? That we are so personalistic. We want to protect our social ties, connections, and we have the idea of sakop, political sakop. I've written that in one of my publications. And so they blame other sakop for this mess because people don't want to protect their personal interest and group interest. Their family, we have family dynasty, no? We have our relatives. We are kinship-based community sa Pilipinas. Karamihan kamag-anak niyan eh. Kung kasabot yung kamag-anak niyan, damay din yung politician kung connected doon or business leader. So they have a lot to protect.
But Professor Ben, are we mature enough or informed enough to know what we should complain about and what is useless to complain about? Kasi, I myself find myself in those situations, and there are things na I just tell my friends, wag na kayong maasar, umupo na lang tayo dito. Complaining isn't going to change our situation. And there are situations where I will go to the front of the row and say, can you explain to me what's going on? Are we mature enough to know the difference?
I think it has to do with the system. In cases kasi, if it is not very clear, information is not clear, people will start creating news or fake news. In this case, look at what happened to Kaap. Is there updated news, information, what's going on, and what will be the solution for this problem? They're waiting for how many hours, diba? Cito, how many days na na-resolve yan? At people are in the dark what to do. No, where to go in the airport. Meron bang updated news ang ating government or this DOTR o ganito ang nangyayari? Updated? Hour ba yan? O this is where you go? Walang klarong rules walang klarong information to guide people in the airports na answer yung flights nila what happened, no? Hindi clear. We have to improve our information system.
Yeah, Professor Dan, is it a good thing or a bad thing when people start making jokes of a serious situation? Kasi as a columnist, as an opinion writer, we have a saying, pag tinitira pa kita, matuwa ka. I am still hoping that you
Yeah.
will turn around. But when I start making fun of you or start making a joke out of you, you're in trouble because the opinion writers have completely lost respect for you. In this situation, is it a good thing or a bad thing?
Yeah, of course, it depends on the quality of the jokes. There are certain jokes that might be, too much and would be part of what we call logical fallacy. So there's no room in that for any discourse. But we have to also remember the second important thing about the point that we're trying to make here, and that
Mm.
is jokes can be coping mechanisms as well for people on how to handle the situation. It's a sign of collective frustration as well when you try to make fun of something or to make light of something. But what we have to remember would be the fact that we don't end up trivializing something very important. I know that we're not supposed to talk about other aspects of misinformation, but just yesterday, Tito, I'm sure you're aware that a certain bank has had technical difficulties, right? Because of
Mm.
double postings of transactions. And you
Mm.
can understand people, either joking about it or ranting about it on social media because the money, their hard-earned money, should be preserved. And in a situation where you have low purchasing power, people will really hold on to their money, even if it's just only 500 pesos or 1,000 pesos. So
Mm.
it is within that system that we have to look at such remarks on social media while keeping in mind the need to be more responsible.
Okay, so dapat pag-ingatan yung trivializing. Now, for our viewers who have family members who want to talk about this situation or this phenomenon and do something about it for their personal or family development, what can you recommend, Professor Ven?
Well, there's really a problem here because there's always a generation gap between millennials, post-millennials, who are very active in social media. They are digital natives. Where are the older people like us? We are still adapting to it, and we are digital migrants. We are still learning. So we have a situation, we have teachers who belong to these digital migrants who lack digital competence, and their students are well advanced because they are digital natives. Now, how can they teach them the proper way? They don't know the technicalities of this social media and technology emerging every minute, evolving. So it's really not that easy, no? Kasi ang teacher mismo ay digitally incompetent. I've done research on that. The faculty, generally, their students are digitally educated and they know the technicalities. So paano ituruan ng teacher kung hindi naman ang teacher mag-strive to learn about the digital technology?
So the same
Dapat
thing with
sabi ko nga,
parents.
yes.
Oh.
Bigyan na ng literacy or seminars yung mga teachers, even parents, para they know the technicalities of these emerging ICTs and social media. So they can
Okay.
guide their children and students.
Okay. How about you, Professor Dan? Last 3 minutes.
Yeah, of course, we have to remember that people should be media literate and media savvy enough. So we have to make sure that the media, through various channels, would be able to help engage the audiences through institutionalized fact-checking. So that's important. And of course, people should also look at several sources of information. Don't just depend on one media source. You have to depend on several others to look at the consistency of the data that you are exposed to. So in a situation where the system or the government does not encourage critical thinking, we have to be critical citizens ourselves. We have to create critical audiences among each of us. All of us should be critical-minded enough to ensure that we would not fall for fake news. So we have to start within ourselves. Thank you.
Okay, Professor Dan Arao and Professor Ven Ballano, thank you very much for your time this morning. And I do hope that the rest of your week is dry, sunny, and have a happy new year, gentlemen.
Happy New Year too. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Maraming salamat.
Maraming salamat. Let's now go to our closing blessing for the week. from First Thessalonians chapter 5, verses 16 to 18. Rejoice evermore, pray without ceasing, in everything give thanks, for this is the will of God in Christ Jesus concerning you. Okay, I just want to remind everyone, it's not nice to find out that you have been the victim of disinformation, misinformation, or fake news. Please be mindful of what you also post so that other people are not misinformed, disinformed, or faked into believing the wrong things. I'm Cito Beltran, thanking you for joining us this morning. God bless all of you. Have a great day. Please keep it here on One News.